Greetings. I am the Mage Mind, and I am here to teach you how to level up your mind. Now, if you're perhaps like me, you may have seen a multitude of different theories about the mind that are all very simplistic. Am I left brain? Am I right brain? Am I hind brain? Am I child brain? Am I chimp brain? Am I this brain? Am I that brain? All based on two simple categories. Now, it all seems rather simplistic that we can be easily put into these categories, but what I'm about to share with you is the reality is that our minds are much more complex. We are not simple creatures, and no, neither is the mind. I'm about to share with you a more complex view of the mind, and with it, hopefully, you'll be able to understand a little bit more about your mind, what it needs, and how to improve your mental health. Now, the mind can be perceived into three main systems. These are big systems, and the first system is represented by the hunter. Now, the elf hunter here, his mind is based on basic instincts. This is your primal hunter instinct. This is the mind which governs your appetite. It governs your thirst. It governs your arousal, your sex drive. It is hard to ignore. When the hunter mind wants something, it tells you to drink. When the hunter mind wants something, it tells you to eat. When the hunter mind wants something and you can't get it, it can become very frustrating. But you must understand that he has an important job to keep our survival in place. It is also the mind that is developed first as a baby. It is the mind which helps us keep us intact and looks after those basic systems which we take for granted. The next mind to be developed is a really important one, the strongest one. It is the warrior mind. Now, the warrior mind is the one associated with your movements. This one develops and controls a lot more of your bodily reactions. It is the mind which reacts when you process all of this information in quickly. It is the one, he is the one who reacts before the mage mind thinks. And that brings me on to our other character, the character with which your mind is watching this video, the character with which your mind is making opinions about these videos, about whether this man is talking nonsense or whether there may be some sense in what is going on here with the mage mind. Because the mage mind is what controls our thoughts. He is the one who can conjure up other different characters to help us in our time of need. He's also the one who can bring down our mental health. He can conjure up the rogue characters, he can conjure up the bandit characters, but he can also help summon some other special characters within the mind, such as the cleric classes of the mind, the priests, the druids, the healers, for within the wizard mind, within the mage mind, is the power to heal the body. Now, what you must understand with these three basic characters, these three basic systems within the mind, is that they all are controlled by chemicals. They all have a different substance which they respond to, an elixir, a fuel that they need. And we must remember to keep these in balance. For instance, this is the substance of the hunter mind. Now, the hunter mind works with serotonin. It is a stimulant for the hunter mind. It is one which controls our appetite, or hunger, or thirst. The warrior is best represented by the endocrine system. Hormones control the warrior. It is like our health points, if you like. This is kind of like our stamina points. If you've ever played a role-playing game, the hunter is what we rely on. We need stamina to keep us strong, and we need health points to be able to exercise, move, and they are degraded through movements, through aging, through time. We lose health points, but we can revive them. Glutamate and other neurotransmitters within the mind are best represented by this blue liquid, which is kind of representative of mana if you've ever played a role-playing game. The mage requires mana within the mind, and dopamine and other receptors to be able to function and think. Now each one of these characters and their resources need to be carefully balanced at all times. If you have an imbalance, either one of them can become affected and give you a poorer health. So you must understand that there is a chemical and a mental balance. It's not just physical thoughts that are going to cure you. Sometimes there are chemicals behind these thoughts, behind these processes, which must also be in balance within the body in order for each one of these systems to function at its maximum capacity. Now, how can this be? What is this representation of the mind and their mana? Well, each one of these systems you use in different capacities on different days. Some days you have very basic needs and you rely on the hunter and you don't spend much time thinking with the mage. Some days perhaps you're doing physical sport, perhaps you're an athlete, and in which case you rely on the warrior. And the warrior is reacting for you quicker than your thoughts. You're not thinking too much. You are reacting. You are the athlete. You are fighting. You are the defender. Now, what can happen is if one of these systems is in the wrong place or is at the forefront within your environment, it can create a detrimental effect. Now, what I mean by that is, so imagine, for instance, you're facing a dragon. Big, scary claws. He frightens you in the cave. Now, what do you do? Who do you rely on? You must rely on all three of these systems. But primarily, the hunter is the one who reacts. The hunter will instantaneously think, oh, this is a survival mode, and he will invigorate the warrior into action. But the mage is still present as well. And the mage may come up with a different way to tackle the beast. So, depending on who is primary in the lead when you come into the scenario can depend on how you react to the situation. Now, if the mage, the primary, your thinking, your clear mental clarity is great, the mage may conjure up the bard who plays his lute and lets the dragon fall asleep. The hunter, if he is quick and reacting, he doesn't need the warrior or the mage. He just fires an arrow in the dragon's eye and the dragon is gone. The warrior also can take on the dragon, raise up his shield and protect against the fiery breath. Now, these scenarios are a little like what you face in everyday life. Perhaps you are being bullied. Perhaps you have someone who comes at you like a dragon. Now, what can happen is if you have a lot of thoughts and you're not in the life-threatening situation, but the dragon is still there eating away at you. Quite often, the mage can take the heat and drain his mana. And when his mana is drained, he starts to think ill thoughts and he relies on the warrior. And the warrior has all this energy, but he doesn't have the mage to keep him intact. So, what happens? You become emotional. The warrior just reacts because the mage, there's no thoughts there. They are just the hunter left and the warrior, and they are working together to be angry, to be snappy, because the bully, the dragon, has affected you. He's drained your mana. The mage has become weak. You'll start to think negative thoughts. The mage turns into the warlock, and the warlock conjures up dark images, and you start to become paranoid. You start to doubt yourself. You start to rely on the warrior and the hunter, but your friends around you, they are confused. This was a normal thinking person, the day one, and now I'm asking a simple question, and they are irritable. Why? Because the mage has no mana. Now, this may make sense in other scenarios as well. Now let me tell you about the athlete. The athlete who is precise, like a tennis player. Perhaps he's a golfer. Perhaps he has the stroke of a sword in fencing. The warrior needs not the mage in these scenarios. To become a super athlete, you must ignore thoughts. How many times has the mage interrupted the warrior and you've missed the ball? You've missed your stroke. We were reacting perfectly to every scenario, and then suddenly what's for dinner appears from the mage and he disrupts the warrior mind. You are no longer a super athlete, you are thinking, and the thoughts, depending on whether this is a high mana or a low mana mage, could be positive or negative. Whether they are positive or negative, they disrupt the warrior from his task of athletic performance. Now the hunter always needs to be in balance, because without this, without our drive to become more sustained, then if we lose parts of this, we can become very low indeed. So all you see, all three systems need to be in balance, but not all the time. Sometimes there is a time for the warrior who is reactive, who can be passionate, who can be angry, but controlled by the mage. Unleash the anger. You have to give thought to the warrior. You have to let him take the heat. And this can be really powerful in the bully situation. Because if you've got a powerful mage, he doesn't take the heat of the dragon. The powerful mage, he thinks differently. He thinks, for this circumstance, I will rely on the warrior. Or I will bring in the cunning of a rogue or the assassin, or I will deflect and take all of this anger, this hatred, this thralling, this abuse, and I will put it on my armor of the warrior, and I will let him take the strength. Now, that may still reduce your health, but it will keep the mana intact. And with the mana intact, you can walk away from the situation. Perhaps sustaining a physical injury, perhaps sustaining a mental injury. Who knows what injuries you have? But if you balance who takes the hit, you can recover. And that is where you employ the cleric class, the druid, the priest, who can help you to recover your mind, to replenish your mana. Good diet is important. The mind cannot replenish these liquids without the sustenance. If you have a poor diet, you may never replenish some of these key chemicals in your mind. And so you continue on your spiral, on your episode of being in a different emotional mood. Now the key to mental health is to understand you have different systems, and that thoughts can both help you, give you passion and drive, and they can hinder you when you need the warrior mind. So it is very important to understand that you are multiple characters. You are many systems. And the secret that I will share with you in a later video is that depending on how much mana and how much health you use, you gain experience, XP points, to help you level up. Now, everybody experiences different things. You have different environments, but everybody is leveling up. If you are in a very negative environment and you are constantly under abuse, you are constantly under attack by dragons, do not worry, because you are still gaining experience, and experience points help grow these jars. Now, you may not have very much liquid in those jars because you are constantly using up your resources. But when you experience negative things or positive things, the jar grows in your mind. You have more capacity, more resilience to take on these challenges as your mind survives them, and the hunter ultimately keeps you alive. The key to improving the situation, to understanding the environment, is how you use those XP points. You can put them all, and you can be the highest level a wizard or a warrior or a mage or paladin, whatever your custom class is. But XP points allow you the experience to be able to respec and reformat, reprogram your mind so that you are no longer the warlock who's giving negative thoughts to the warrior who's become a dark knight. No, you can change your class, use those XP points to create a super powerful paladin or a super powerful holy knight who will go forth proud, and he will change the environment into a positive one. Now, that is not always possible, and that is not always easy, but remember, whatever experience you have had, you have gained experience, and how you choose to spend that experience is down to you. The mage, his thoughts, if you let them, can reprogram and summon a new character within you who can be your lead, because these three base classes create our own individual, unique custom class. Now, whether that is the swashbuckler, whether that is the pirate, it could be the druid, the warden, the beastmaster, it could be the warrior, the athlete, it could be any one of these things. You could want to be super mind powerful, a mage, a necromancer of great renown, but yet kind in what he is doing. Who knows? Each of us creates a custom class character, which we put at the front of our communications, our interactions. Someone may come up to us when the mage is down or our forward class is down, and we react with the hunter and the mage, the hunter and the warrior. We snap, we react. This is not the way of the mage mind. We need to understand that every part of the mind has a use and a place in society, in our interactions, in our communities. Who we want to be in those moments when we need them the most is down to us. Now, what you must let is, when you've got a weak mage, give yourself time away from that environment. Get away from the dragons. Go out, back out of the cave. Do not face it yet if you do not have the strength to defeat it. Step out of the environment and then come back stronger with your new mental army. Now, I will share with you how to use these tactics to overcome different challenges in my later videos. I hope you find this useful. I hope you understand 3 systems create a multiple of classes, and I will show you how to interact with someone else who has the same set of classes, how the mage reacts to the warrior, and how the hunter warrior can defeat the mage, interact with the mage, be compassionate, all work together, all come together as communities to defeat what is bothering us the most. I hope you enjoy this video. Please comment if you have a particular dragon that you would like me to help you slay, whether it is a bully at work, whether it is an athletic challenge you must overcome, share them